With us just being one mere week away from the release of Lyrical Monasterio in the English format, it's finally time to take a delayed look at all 6 decks, this time looking at the actual deck lists of every single ride line. Welcome folks, it's time for the usual all decks video. The DB01 is still underway because I've been playing a lot of other formats lately, +0, so I haven't actually had time to test too many of the DB03 decks, but for today, we are going to be taking a look at Lyrical Monasterio, which I've been dedicating quite a bit of time to lately. Today's video is particularly special as well because a lot of these deck lists have been sent in by some community members who are particularly prominent with certain ride lines that I wanted to take their opinion on, test their decks, and I felt that they were quite good. Some of them have made some changes to myself, and some of them I've left the way they are. Some of them, I mean, they even made some changes to themselves, so you might want to talk to them about that. Their names will be in the video. So without any further ado, let's get into it and talk about these decks. So we're going to go in the same order that we did for Wednesday's video. So if you haven't already seen, I made a video talking about what all of these ride lines do to help you decide on which deck you might want to build. And we're going to start with the same order, going up with Kairi first as the top batter. So this list was sent in to me by Meloetta Matt, so big thank you to them because they have been testing Kairi quite a lot. And this list is basically the Ghost hybrid. So of course we run the Kairi ride line. So of course the grade 1 in this case is an on ride, revive a grade 1 or lower from your drop zone to rearguard circle as rest. And then the grade 2 says when she attacks, you can basically bounce a rearguard back to your hand. So you can even discard triggers for your ride deck, which the grade 1 will revive, and then the grade 2 will bounce to hand. Worst case, if not, then the Kairi will bounce to hand after that. The grade 2 here also allows you to, when boosted, if your Vanguard is a Kairi +1, calls them to open rearguard circle. And with Kairi opening up the front row rears all the time when she attacks, that will basically extend our multi-attacks, which is very, very nice. She has the other trial deck card here, of course, that allows us to extend those multi-attacks when she soul blasts 1, and you can look at top deck and calls them to open rearguard circle. However, just relying on Kairi to open up the rearguard circles isn't enough, and so that's why we're playing the entire ghosty package. Not ghosty, sorry, ghosts. So Ingrid is one such option. She basically, when she attacks, gives 5k power to herself, and at the end of the battle goes to your bottom of your deck. But when she's placed outside of the hand, so I guess if you high roll her off of Shia, she can countercharge 1 and stand another rearguard in the same column as her. But you mainly use her just to open up those front row rearguard circles. Then we have the Annalise, who also, when boosted at the end of the attack she battled, you can put her to soul to give another rearguard plus 5k, which again lets you power up your board while emptying out your front row. Eleanor does the exact same thing. She attacks, soul blast 2, gains 15k power, and then at the end of that battle, she will put herself to the top of the deck, which isn't too great for Kairi because of course it is a way to open up your front row, but then you know that you're going to drive check her or damage check her right after that. The smart thing is to put her on top and then use something to superior call a Shia, knowing then for a fact that the Shia will call her out. So this deck can actually achieve a maximum of 7 attacks, which is really, really impressive. And so the attack pattern can be something like attacking with any ghost, then attacking with the grade 2 boosted by something, which will then call another ghost, then attacking with that ghost, then attacking with the Kairi, which now you should have an empty like front row circle from all the ghosts being there. So then you bounce the rearguard column of the Heiress plus her booster, and then you basically just call them back out together with the Shia, and then the Shia will call you another optimally ghost. Optimally, that's an Eleanor. So then you can attack with the Eleanor, and then you attack with the Heiress again, and then the Heiress calls something else out on top of that. And so that just lets you high roll a lot of attacks, which is really strong, but it is Persona Ride reliant, so keep that in mind. But if you're looking to upgrade your start deck, this is basically a very nice way to do so. There's plenty of other builds as well for Kairi. You can like combine her with a lot of different playstyles, but this is the one that I really wanted to feature today. For Loronerol, honestly, this is the list that you're going to be seeing at a lot of tournaments. The lineup is really simple. 1 of each Loronerol in the ride deck, plus 4 of the grade 3 for the Persona rides, 4 of the Pot of Greed with legs, 4 of the Uma Musume, who basically lets you on guard soul blast 1, and she gets plus 5k shield for every order in your order zone, which is pretty insane when you think about how big her shield can become in the late game. 3 of the grade 1 countercharger, who literally countercharges for free. It's quite literally effortless, quite amazing. Then you can have 4 of the PGs, 4 of either the grade 1 that gains 5k power, which is an 8k, or 4 of the grade 2 that is an 8k that gains 5k. I personally like to use more boosters because I feel like you already have enough attackers in this deck purely from the Seito Kaicho, that's the Pot of Greed with legs, and if you choose to actually call down the Uma Musume girl. So I think boosts are pretty nice because you are restanding your full board in the late game. 8 crit 3 draw because I guess you draw into more pieces. Stonks question mark? And then the order lineup is always the same. It's 4 winters, 3 autumns, and 1 spring, because the spring you play from the grade 1 of the ride line, and then the fall is the crit giver, and then the winter one is your board restand plus your power up. This deck quite literally almost never changes. I'm also not planning to cover this deck in a deck profile, so this is what you're getting, but we've seen this deck topping over and over and over again because it's very strong, basically on the same power level as Bruce and friends, which is pretty crazy to think about. And to think that this deck used to run 11 crits, guys, imagine. I don't want to spend too much time on this deck. I already explained quite a lot of it in the Wednesday video, so you can check that out if you want to, but basically the whole thing with this deck is playing the song orders, flipping them face down, and then being able to plus a bunch from the grade 2 and just having a Hamiel, which means you have a huge power with extra critical with no sentinels on your Vanguard, which also restands your not so big rears, which is definitely very lethal. Moving on, we have Wilista. Now this list was submitted by Neko Kuro, who plays Wilista not just in standard but also in premium. So this build used the Wilista ride line, of course, because the grade 1 searches for our precious gems, and the grade 2 lets us draw an extra card when we play a precious gem, and then of course the grade 3 is what gives us the payoff for all of them. Also, Wilista is by far the cutest, drawn by Fuzichoko, in my opinion has the best art. Please don't argue with me on this, I just feel very strongly about Fuzichoko's art. And then we have some support cards, and you'll see that the ratios are definitely a little bit odd here because we play 4 of each of the orders because of course they are the backbone of the deck, they're very, very important. Then we play 2 of the Oteria, so she is basically, when you play the red gem, if your Vanguard is Wilista, she gets plus 10k power and then lets you play another order for that turn, so you can either play the same order or play a different one to give the power up. So she's okay, but not like backbreaking amazing in my opinion. We have Midia, when she's called to rear, count +1 and search your deck for the grade 1 here that you see the Emerine and call her. So she's pretty good because she's in 11k. There's a bunch of different like power numbers in Lyrical, which you gotta get used to. So she's in 11k that calls a 7k, so they make 18k together, and the grade 1 gains 5k, so they make a 23k column together, which is definitely stonks. 2 of the Battle Door, which is the Florencia, so she is definitely quite nice. She has to be called from not hand though to activate that effect, so you have to call her from Wilista's second effect. 4 of basically the best grade 2 in the deck, which is the Henrietta. When boosted, you Soul Blast 1 to give her the power of the boosting unit's shield. So you basically want to boost her with a trigger. If you somehow top deck call an over trigger, that's actually a good thing because she's going to get plus 55k, which is pretty huge. So keep that in mind, but of course you want to just like call a random trigger behind her and then she will just swing for huge power. And this deck is a deck that wants to rush from as early as possible, so please don't hold back and just push with her as much as possible from turn 1 onwards. And finally we have the Elvira. When you play the blue gem, she lets you draw an extra card if you have a Wilista Vanguard, which is quite nice. It's not once per turn as well. But this deck already draws a lot, so you don't really need too much of that extra draw, and that's why you run 8 crit and 3 fronts. But yeah, this deck is definitely just like, you know, bash face, power up, plus from Wilista skill, dot deck, you draw a bunch. It feels like Orphis, to be honest. 3 attacks, but attacks for big numbers and draws a lot of cards. Moving on, we have Alestiel, and this is actually Mr. Gamerline's deck that he came top 8 with in our FRF standard in the DBT03 meta. So yes, this could actually stand to fight against all the Bruces, although there weren't that many Bruces in the tournament, I think. But still, he did quite well with it, so that's why I want to feature it, because I do like this list a lot myself. As I explained on the Wednesday video, this deck wants to have even or odd grades in the bind zone, and this build is specifically built for White Wings, which is the odd grades. So of course we have 1 of each of the actual Alestiel and then 4 of the grade 3. 4 of the supporting grade 3, who says when your Vanguard is placed, bind her to draw 1, and when she is bound, until your opponent's next end of turn, you activate both White Wings and Black Wings abilities for this whole turn, which is really, really nice because you get both effects. But of course, keep in mind to not clog up your like bind zone with like a grade 2 that has a +1 grade or a grade 0 that has a +1 grade, and her, or just in general, like if you're trying to go for like Black Wings for some reason, then, you know, just be careful, you know, don't clog it up too badly, because it can sometimes, like if you have both even and odd, it deactivates both of them, so be careful. Then we have the Bibuel, so she's a Soul Blast 1 and retire herself to draw 1, choose a trigger unit in your bind zone, give it +1 grade, and on top of that she's a 13k attacker / 5k shield, which is pretty nice for grade 3. So she's just there to basically, like, if you bind a trigger, like make it White Wings, which is very nice. This grade 2 is basically the same purpose, count +1, put her into the soul to draw 1, and choose a card in your bind zone and give it +1 grade. But if you are on Black Wings, she basically has resist, which is definitely quite nice. Then we have our Wincon, which is the Ermier, so you'll notice there's a lot of angel names that if you like Angel Feather, this might be the one for you. White Wings, when she's placed on rear, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, count +1, and for every 3 odd grade units on your board, you choose 1 rearguard and give it +5k power +1 crit. You cannot choose the same unit twice. This is basically the Wincon con for Alestiel, where the, Alestiel herself has built-in crit and power, and then you basically give crit and power to your front row, which is very nice. Then we have the Danaer, so she is, when she boosts on White Wings, you can Soul Blast 2 to give another reroll plus 5k for every of your odd grade units, so you give a total of plus 25k to something. With that extra crit can definitely be what closes the game sometimes. Like, I've actually won games thanks to this ability, which is really good. And then we have the Mighty Whale, who basically gets plus 10k when you're in White Wings, so she's just a solid 15k attacker slash booster to make those huge columns with a bonus crit. This deck is also very fun, as I've said before, definitely something that a lot of people would like. And so this is the White Wings build. If you want to ask more questions about this list, feel free to reach out to Mr. Gamerline, as he's already been experimenting with other cards. Moving on, we have the deck that is probably the easiest to build, which is of course Earnest Correct. So Earnest Correct, we run the entire Clarissa ride line, because that basically lets us search for Earnest Correct members and also search for the actual order, which lets us pull off the Brawler skill. The Earnest Correct members, we have the Triple Rare, who searches for another Earnest Correct member that you don't have on the board already, who's a grade 2 or lower if you count lost 1, which is very nice. We have the grade 2 that restands when your Vanguard's attack hits something, which is also very cool. The grade 1 double rare that lets you basically protect things by Soul Blasting 1, discarding 1, and bouncing something that gets retired. And then the grade 1 that gets 5k power every time your Vanguard's attack hits something, so basically getting really swole thanks to also Clarissa's effect as an extent. This deck also draws a lot thanks to Clarissa's ability of basically being able to draw up to 3 cards per turn from her own skill and the order combined, so we don't need to play draws in this. 8 crit, 3 front is perfectly fine. I also like to play 3 of the Blitz order that basically says if your Vanguard's already been hit this turn, the attacked unit gains plus 30k power. So you have to basically let one attack hit you that turn, and then it's a 30k shield, which is very strong for a Blitz order. And finally, we're going to take a look at Feltyrosa. So this is of course the ghosts led by the vampire. So of course you'll notice this is the one ride line I run, where we actually run the grade 1 from a different ride line, which is of course Wilista. The Wilista grade 1 says when you ride over it, you can put a card from your hand into your soul to search your deck for a precious gem card added to your hand, in which case we're going to search for the red one, which lets us counterblast 1, draw 2, discard 1, and put this order into the soul. The soul is very important in this deck, and I was even running the grade 2 list at first because she draws an extra card for you just to have like access to more combo pieces, but I think the grade 2 Feltyrosa is very important here in being able to reveal a ghost normal unit from your hand and put it on top of your deck to actually set up for Felty's skill. And she also takes a ghost from your drop zone into your hand, and that part of the grade 2 skill doesn't say you have to take a normal unit ghost. You can actually take a trigger unit ghost, which we have a crit and a heal for, so that is definitely very nice in just getting that set up, which then of course Feltyrosa, the grade 3, will make full use of. The package itself is pretty hard to maneuver otherwise, right? We have the Ingrid, who is basically our countercharger plus the column restander, and also, goes to bottom of deck and gives things power, so she clears her own front row. We have the Annalise, who at the end of the battle, she was boosted, goes to the soul and gives something 5k, so opening up the front row like that. We have the Eleanor, who when she attacks Soul Blast 2 gains 15k power, and at the end of that battle goes to the top of the deck, so you can call her right back out with Feltyrosa, which is really cool. And then we have the grade 2 that when called goes to soul and you can draw cards. So if you don't like what you called off of Feltyrosa's effect, because she says when she drive checks a normal unit ghost, you can counterblast 1 to call it to the front row unoccupied rearguard circle. But if you don't want to use her as an attacker, you can basically put into the soul, draw a card, and then you still have more drive checks with Feltyrosa, so you can try to still find better attackers. We have the grade 1, which says when another one of your ghosts is placed on rearguard circle during your battle phase, stands herself in the back row rearguard circle, which is nice for making just stronger attacks. And then we have the grade 1 ghost that says when placed on rear, if you have another ghost on rearguard circle, then you can choose another rearguard and give it 5k power. So she's not that great. I've seen some lists you can cut her entirely, but she is a ghost, which can be nice just to pass on that power and make better attacks. This deck especially thrives off of persona riding, of course, because it is a 5 attack deck, so it's really important to just have the highest power threshold possible. Make sure you build up your soul with Wilista and grade 1, as well as the precious gem. And we also run 4 draws and 7 crit here, because the draw can help in just finding your pieces for the combos you want to do. And so that is it. Those are the 6 Lyrical Monasterio decks for this set. We'll be revisiting this nation once again in about half a year when they get their support once more, but I definitely was quite surprised how fun these decks were. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting that much out of them, but they are very fun, beautiful arts, especially. My god, they all look so fantastic, and playstyle wise they really managed to explore explore something unique and cool that they haven't really been able to do with Bermuda Triangle before. So I'm honestly very glad to see Bushiroad embrace this like creative approach with Lyrical Monasterio. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the video. Of course, 3 of these lists were brought in by viewers, so make sure to ask them questions. If you have any, you can reach out to them on Twitter. I'll leave links in the description. I'll be covering some of these decks myself in deck profiles and stuff, so you can look forward to that as well. But otherwise, if you liked the video, please do give it a like. If you like the content, please do subscribe. And that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.